Put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you bring, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Hold on to the edge of your seats because you are in for quite the ride. It's time for the Granada Forum Radio Show. Right now, live on air with your host, Granada Wendy.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Granada Forum Radio program. Today is the 8th of June. It's the second weekend, so things are moving right along. I'd like to thank my wonderful co-host tonight, Mr. Nick Beerson.
Hey, hey.
And my wonderful producer, Mr. Richard Kane.
Hi there.
I'd also like to thank Matt Painter for a couple of weeks back. If Matt, you're listening, we want to thank you so much for everything you did. Thank you. We have an incredible guest tonight. As you know, we have Deborah Tavares on tonight, and she has a very special guest with her too. So we're gonna have some fun, and it's gonna be practically 2 hours full of knowledge and wisdom. So you definitely want to listen and stay tuned. We're just going to real quick do a couple of quick announcements and then get to Deborah real fast. This is Revolution Radio, and we are the #1 commercial-free, listener-supported internet talk radio station in the world. We are located at freedomslips.com. That's freedomslips, SLIPS.com, or go to revolutionradio.com. That's revolutionradio.com. Did I say that right, Nick?
Revolution.radio.
It's revolution.radio.
Okay, I got to write that one down. I get it backwards every week. Okay. So say that again, Nick, real quick.
It's revolution.radio.
.radio, okay.
And freedomslips.com. Those are our two URLs that you can pick us up and listen to us.
Great.
Oh,
cool.
And you can also listen to us on iTunes because we're on there also.
And you can check out Granada Forum on YouTube as well. We put up all our shows so you can listen for free. And that's you go to Granada Forum YouTube, so that's always good things there too. Okay, we're just going to do real quick, get Deborah on real quick. Okay, by the way, if you'd like to check out the homepage of Revolution Radio, equivalent to a cup of coffee, leave us. We appreciate it because we always can use a donation. And if you'd like to leave a donation of $100 with Nighthawk, he'll give you like 35,000 seeds and how to grow, store plants, and etc. So it is a very nice gift. So thank you so much for that, Mr. Nighthawk. Okay. By the way, next Friday night we'll be at AlienCon Live, and that's AlienCon in Pasadena. Go to aliencon.com. That's aliencon.com. It's going to be a wonderful conference. We'll be there live Friday night with a bunch of wonderful guests of ufology and all kinds of stuff. So we're looking forward to that. Me and Nick will be in person, and Cousin Bob and our crew. So we're very grateful to AlienCon. That's aliencon.com. And we're looking forward to next Friday night with their live in Pasadena. So very much so. Okay, real quick too, You want to check out the 46th Annual Cancer Control Convention at the Glendale Hilton Hotel, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 2018. We'll be there live Friday night doing a live show as well. And that's at www.cancercontrolsociety.com. That's cancercontrolsociety.com, www.cancercontrolsociety.com. Their phone number is 323-663-7801. That's 663-7801. And that's for all the alternative therapies to cancer. That's just all the alternative therapies to cancer. So definitely want to check that out. Also, too, in September, real quick, we will be at the Natural Health Solutions Expo. That's the Natural Health Solutions Expo at the LAX Marriott at 5855 West Century Boulevard, Los Angeles, 90045. That's 5855 West Century Boulevard, Los Angeles, 90045. That's September 22nd through the 23rd, Saturday and Sunday, but we'll be there Friday night doing a live show there too, as well as filming it, so we're looking forward for that. And that's September 22nd and 23rd, 2018. The phone number for this is 562, area code 212-3479. That's 562-212-3479. So we're looking forward to that. We'd like to introduce our guest. Her website, Deborah Tavares, is www.stopthecrime.net. That's www.stopthecrime.net and I believe it's primarywater.org, but www.stopthecrime.net takes you to most of all her sites. Let me introduce you to this wonderful lady without any further ado, Miss Deborah Tavares.
Wendy, thank you and Nick for having me on this evening. This is sadly a very diabolical report that I'm going to be discussing this evening, and it fits with the types of weapon systems that we're seeing deployed in all of our neighborhoods now and have been being deployed for some years now with the microwave frequencies that are disguised and it is a genocide program. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to introduce my guest. He'll be talking in and out of the show this evening. This is Mr. John Knox. He's a core member of Los Angeles Skywatch, so all about the geoengineering, of which plays a very important part in this electrified electronic grid that we find ourselves all being further confined in and subdued. And John has been with Los Angeles Skywatch for a number of years, and he is a lifelong, passionate nutritionist, and his interest is in fitness. John, I want to thank you for joining me. We're going to be sharing through this program this evening, so thank you so much for joining me.
Well, believe me, I'm extremely happy to be here, and I say hi to Wendy and Nick. Good to talk to you guys again, and anything I can add, yeah, it's my absolute pleasure.
You just throw it in, John. Okay. So,
I will, I promise.
And I know that you will. So this is a plea. This is a plea for absolutely everyone that is listening. No one can stand on the sidelines any longer. If you're listening and you don't share this information that you're going to happily get from Granada Forum in YouTube format, which is going to have many of the documents that you're going to hear discussed this evening, which of course you can also go to stopthecrime.net. But we're going to be putting this out in YouTube so that there are show notes and there's information so that you can easily share the program this evening. You're going to need to do that. If you are not participating in any way now, then you are adding to the demise of the human family, the entire human family across the entire planet. And I'll say a couple of things about that.
There's one thing I would like to add here, Deborah. We're going to be publishing this on also our Los Angeles Skywatch website, which is www.losangelesskywatch.org. And we're also encouraging activists to take the smallest action, even if it's wearing a T-shirt or putting a bumper sticker on your car. Every action counts now. We need all voices.
Right. We're in the final 11th hour for everyone that's listening. For those of you that have been listening to the information for a very long time, we are facing a moment where everyone needs to step up now. So here's a quote by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, and not to act is to act. And this is also another very famous quote that I go over many times. It is by the former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover back in 1956. And this applies to what you're going to hear this evening. And this is his quote: "The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. The American mind simply has not come to a realization of the evil which has been introduced into our midst. It rejects even the assumption that human creatures could espouse a philosophy which must ultimately destroy all that is good and decent." And this is part of what we're going to be talking tonight. We're going to be talking about a number of topics, but we're going to jump right into the genocide document that I recently spoke with Dr. Bill Deagle about. And in fact, I'm on Dr. Bill Deagle's show, NutriMedical Report, every Monday at 2 p.m. You can also go to the NutriMedical Report and go to the archives and look at some of the shows that I've done. We'll be getting this particular show last Monday of June the 4th, 2018, up on YouTube. You're going to hear Dr. Bill Deagle contributing to what you're going to hear right now. So we're very much aware. It's been published massively over the last few days because there's been some high-profile suicides. And I've been looking at what has been being published over June the 8th and the 7th, and there's suicide statistics. And this is just an example from U.S. News, June 8th. U.S. suicide rates see sharp increase from 1999 to 2016. That the CDC says this. And here's what the article in part is telling us. That suicide rates rose in nearly every U.S. state from 1999 to 2016, with the rate spiking by more than 30% in half of the country. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported just a couple of days ago. And they go on, it's a national problem, a wide scope that we need comprehensive approaches for, said the CDC director. Nearly 45,000 people committed suicide in 2016, making it one of the 3 leading causes of death in the rise of the United States, along with Alzheimer's disease and drug overdoses. The death of designer Kate Spade by suicide in New York this past week shocked the fashion world. Her husband said in a statement on Wednesday that she had suffered from depression and anxiety. The CDC suicides were rarely caused by any single issue. They go on to talk about gun violence and that guns are the most common way in which people will take their lives. And of course, we know that the country is after guns to eliminate guns, and this is a massive cover-up. It's a massive cover-up of suicides, because these are military weapons systems, a silent weapons system, all disguised as civilian communication services. It's most important to read. Everyone download, read Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. You will read in that document the planned use of a type of biological and psychological weapon where people will not realize what they face. Most people don't realize what we all face now. So the document that I'm going to go over with you, that I went over with Dr. Bill Deagle, is basically as follows, because it is a document that is surreal. And I want to say a few things before I read this. It's extremely important to understand the time that we're in. This information is not to increase fear in people. It is to create activism, to get you out there, to work and love your fellow human being. Make amends with everyone that you have fault with, and live one day at a time in right conduct, because that's where we are now. I'm going to read also something right now before I get into this excruciatingly difficult document. Here in Northern California, where I am, there is an activist. She is a Native American Indian woman, and her name is Shikosh. And I'm hearing some background noise, so if we could work on eliminating that, that would be terrific. But having said that...
It may be a plane flying over here. It may be.
Okay, maybe it's a chemtrail plane. We've been very heavily chemtrailed here today, so I wouldn't doubt if that's what you're hearing, folks, is a chemtrail plane. So let's move on to what Shikosh, a Native American Indian, has said. And this is from the elders. Very important to understand what the Native American Indians are saying at this time. The time of the lone wolf is over. You must gather yourselves. You must banish or get rid of the word struggle from your vocabulary and your life. All that is to be done now is in sacred celebration. There is a river flowing now, very fast. It is so wide and swift that there will be those that are afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will be torn apart and suffer greatly. There is no shore. You are to push off into the middle of the river. Keep your eyes open, your head above water. See who is in the river with you and celebrate. So for all of you that are listening, all of you that understand, we're all in a river together, and we are needing to push off the shore and understand what is occurring. We are in a massive, massive global transition, unlike one that we've ever faced before. Earth is in absolute upheaval. Not only profound technological disruptions, but massive stealth and a silent weapons warfare system. So with that having been said, I'm going to be talking about this website. It's Deagle.com, and it's not spelled like Dr. Bill Deagle spells his name. This website is spelled Deagle. So Dr. Bill Deagle is Deagle. And this Deagle.com website is a real intelligence organization for the U.S. government, and it predicts massive global depopulation, somewhere between 50 and 80% by the year 2025. This is a global prediction. Now, I'm just going to align you now with the report from Iron Mountain just for a moment. We've been told this. We know this. The Georgia Guidestones have certainly been outlining the plan for massive depopulation. And even the report from Iron Mountain has told us that the primary purpose of the report from Iron Mountain was to determine the minimum and optimum levels of destruction of life, the destruction of property, the destruction of natural resources, on the possibility and desirability of peace. And it's whose peace that we're being taken down for and by.
Deborah.
Yes.
Can you give out that website one more time and spell it?
Yes. And it will be in the YouTube as this unfolds and is available for everyone. It's Deagle.com, DEAGEL.com. Now, we did an email blast on stopthecrime.net, and we pulled out what some of the ways in which they're planning this murder and this increased rate. So I'm going to go over that with everyone now. Again, it is a real intelligence organization for the U.S. government, and it does predict, again, these are plans for massive global depopulation between 50 and 80% by the year 2025. It's important to know that, of course, few people know of this website, and even more claim the organization doesn't legitimately exist at all, despite the overwhelming suppression of its significance. WikiLeaks documents have revealed it was legitimately used as reference material in a staffer report, which is a Zio Intel operative, and Friedman is potentially the CEO of Staffer. And it was, again, reference material in the Staffer report on the technological capabilities of the People's Republic of North Korea. And according to their own website, Deagle.com, Deagle provides news and intelligence on international military aviation and advanced technologies. The website has articles dating back to 2003, but little is known about the real owners. Many online researchers have erroneously confused this site with Deagle.com. In other words, the L and the E are transposed. More research on Deagle and their associates can be found also at the Pizzagate websites discussing that. And Deagle's reports in particular, the research on North Korea provided to the president during the presidential daily briefings. Deagle has provided information which is substantially used by global intelligence community and governments. And here is a partial list of the known contributors and the agencies involved in this Deagle website. Very important to understand who's behind this. This is very similar to the agencies that is part of the NASA war plan that I have on stopthecrime.net. So it's the National Security Agency, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, the Organization for Economic Co-Cooperation and Development, the Russian Defense Procurement Agency, the OSCE, and Stafford. Again, Stafford is alleged as a Zionist intel operative, and Friedman is potentially, with a question mark, the CEO. Also, the World Bank is involved. We know that is Rothschild, and the United Nations. We know that this highly regarded intelligence organization has a grim outlook for the United States in the coming years. And they talk about a 78% decrease in population. In fact, it predicts similar catastrophic fate for the United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, Japan, and Denmark, and more U.S. allied nations. So what they're forecasting, and this was the year 2013, the population from 316 million, and the forecast in 2025 is a population to 69 million. And they tell us that they know that many Australian readers would be curious as well, and for their reference, their population will be cut from 22 million to 11 million. And on Deagle's forecast page can be found, which was made by the authors in October 26th of 2014, which claims the population shifts are due to suicide and dislocation, and assure us that they are not a death or satanic cult. So I'm going to read this again. Population shifts and death rates will increase due to suicide. This is a cover-up for the electromagnetic frequencies that are being used worldwide. We've had reports out of Cuba, most recently now out of China. The fact that these weapons have been injuring U.S. diplomats and consulate workers. Most recently, certainly, the U.S. warned citizens in China after an abnormal sound injures a consulate worker. But it actually is more than just a consulate worker, because they talk about a medical mystery grows as U.S. consulate workers in China fall ill. And they talk about their ailments with a number and variety of problems. And here's what they're saying. The lead excerpt out of the U.S. warns citizens in China after abnormal sound injures a consulate. They say the U.S. government issued a health alert to Americans in China, warning them about the incident it described as subtle and vague, but abnormal sensations of sound and pressure. These are acoustic weapons and other directed energy weapons.
Deborah, I do have something to add on that, because I was researching this 2 days ago. There is a subliminal acoustic manipulation patent, and I can give the number. It's 6,017,302. Let me make it easy. 6017302A, and it all has to do with the subliminal manipulation of the nervous system through a very, very weak sub-audio acoustic wave. And this patent was applied for in, I believe, 2001. Now, basically what I said when I posted this, when a corporation pays all that money to secure the rights to a product, they intend to capitalize on it. They will build it, they will sell it, or they'll license it, because the stockholders wouldn't have it any other way. This was granted in the year 2000. So my question
thank you.
My question
for
is,
that.
My question simply is, has it been used?
Well, of course it has. And as you just said, they don't spend that enormous kind of money to create weapons and not use them. Most important to understand, we're the enemy. But let me continue with this this genocide program, because it has maps, and I'm going to go over it. It talks about, again, that murder and genocide will be caused by suicide and dislocation of people. And they say historically a change in the economic paradigm has resulted in a death toll that is rarely highlighted by mainstream historians. When the transition from rural or country areas to large cities happened in Europe, many people were unable to accept the new paradigm and killed themselves. They killed themselves by a psychological factor. This is not mainstream, but it is true. A new crisis joins an old one, well-known patterns with new ones. So let's talk about this, because as you go through the map and you look at the depopulation rates for these various countries, it's profound. And again, in the United States, the planned reduction by the year 2025 is a reduced population of 83%. Again, in the UK, the planned genocide rate for and by 2025 is 78%. 78%. So from 64 million to 14 million. The planned reduction rate in Germany is from 81 million to 31 million, or a percentage of 62%. Switzerland is planned a 33% reduction from 8.2 million to 5.5 million. And you can search your country on this website, and don't be misled if you don't find matches. Just continue to select the country and then click on the country result to find the numbers. Again, we release this as a blast out on stopthecrime.net. If you have not signed up on stopthecrime.net to receive our blast outs, I would recommend that you do. Now, you can find our blast outs on the website, and I would again recommend that you receive them as we send them out. So let's talk about the ways in which we know that this plan and how they're going to approach this plan. Again, it's a silent weapons system. And it's important to understand that, of course, we have increased climate refugees by the use of weather weapons. We have resource refugees, which now are homeless because of water restrictions and food restrictions. We see that happening in Africa. We see South America being just torn apart. Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador. Certainly the mass exodus out of the chaos, the economic chaos in Brazil right now, of hundreds of thousands of people and more on a monthly basis is causing a horrific effect. And this is happening all over the world. People are leaving their homes because in South Africa, for example, in Cape Town, months ago they were told that there was 0-day water. We saw photographs of people standing at spigots with plastic water jugs, being told that you may not get to fill it again, and whatever you're able to accumulate right now may be it for a while. That created an enormous exodus of South Africa. They're literally depopulating Africa right now. There are huge game preserves in Africa right now that are genetically modifying the wildebeest and other African animals, including the lion. They're creating white lions that are not able to survive in the wild. They have corkscrew tails. They get sunburn in the African heat, and their legs are not fit for the wild. But this is big game now for the elite hunters. They like these unusual trophies. The wildebeest are equally being genetically modified. They're creating different colors, different sizes. The same thing with many other animals, too, that were in a kind of a brown color. They're creating black colors. Those are highly sought. Hunters, elite hunters, are paying anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 to kill to get something unique. And Africa is, as we speak, being massively depopulated. I'm going to throw a couple things in right now. This is massively important because this is adding to the weaponized frequency system that is targeting each and every single one of us everywhere. There's no exception. It's everywhere. But what we discovered when we were researching the Rwanda genocide, and some of you may have heard me discuss this, but I would recommend that each and every single one of you type in and look for yourself Operation Crimson Mist. And again, this will be part of the show notes under the YouTube of this show. Operation Crimson Mist was a program that was launched by the U.S. and the CIA in Central Africa in the mid-90s. What occurred was the economic hitman team came in on the ground and enticed a war between the Tutsis and the Hutu African nations. And with ground teams and creating animosity between the two African factions, they then were able to arrange, as I understand it, a meeting of the presidents of the two African nations. A bomb was dropped on that meeting, severing the political leadership of Central Africa, again, in the mid-1990s. When that occurred, there was tremendous anger buildup, and they used a C-130 Hercules plane that was equipped with microwave weapons, and they beamed and used the weapons system on the Hutus, which became ballistic in their actions. Their anger was intensified because they were already angry. This is very similar to how psychotronic weapons work, where they take your emotions and your feelings that you own. You have those feelings, but it's intensified where you become uncontrollably outraged. This outrage followed with over 1 million Africans being slaughtered. And we've used this in Iraq as well and on other theaters of warfare, and we're in the theater of warfare now. The United States.
Yes, we are.
And all of the countries that I spoke about that are being genocided. This, again, is a silent weapons system of mass destruction.
I'd like to say something here very quickly and very simply, because it's something that we came to in Los Angeles, and it's an angle that we're working, which I think is extremely useful. The anti-war groups, the traditional anti-war groups, have always looked to another nation. They've always looked for tanks and bombs. And it came to me one day that if I could show them that a war is being brought to their very door, to their very body, and it's here right now, what I'm looking to do is take that type of emotional response that the anti-war people have to unjustified use of guns, bombs, and tanks elsewhere, and show them that their family, their friends, and themselves, they're in a war right now. So you're basically showing me the opening that I believe there's many, many more people we can engage, and it's really true. Everything you're saying is absolutely true.
Well, I think, John, one of the most important documents that everyone needs to read and create a workbook out of it is Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. I think it discusses how the silent weapons system is and has been used. And again, this was a document that was put together back in 1994, and Rothschild was involved in this document. It is a free download from StopTheCrime.net. Everyone that's listening, part of how you engage is understanding what is happening, so then you can understand what you might be able to do. And sharing this information is key.
And if I can, John and Deborah, you really do have to try to convince people that warfare is not just tanks, bombs, airplanes, and people shooting at each other. Warfare has changed dramatically since Vietnam, since Korea, since World War II. I mean, we're engaged in an entirely different kind. So you have to find a way to change your minds on how traditional warfare isn't even the norm anymore.
And the one refinement that I would add there is I don't want to change their minds. I want them to want to change their own minds.
Well, here's the important thing, and this is what everybody needs to do. If you want to understand, you have to do a little bit of reading. The Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document is only 41 pages. Again, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. I'm going to read to you what a silent weapons system is on page 7 and 8. And this is verbatim. It says, descriptive introduction of the silent weapon. Everything that is expected from an ordinary weapon is expected from a silent weapon by its creators, but only in its own manner of functioning. It shoots situations instead of bullets, propelled by data processing instead of chemical reaction or explosion, originating from bits of data instead of grains of gunpowder, from a computer instead of a gun, operated by a computer programmer instead of a marksman, under the orders of a banking magnate instead of a military general. It makes no obvious explosive noises, causes no obvious physical or mental injuries, and does not obviously interfere with anyone's social or daily life. Yet, it makes an unmistakable noise, causes unmistakable physical and mental damage, and unmistakably interferes with the daily social life, unmistakable to a trained observer, one who knows what to look for. The public cannot comprehend this weapon, and therefore cannot believe that it is they are being attacked and subdued by any weapon at all. The public might instinctively feel that something is wrong, but that is because of the technical nature of the silent weapon. They cannot express their feelings in a rational way or handle the problem with intelligence. Therefore, the public does not know how to cry for help and does not know how to associate with others to defend themselves against it. When a silent weapon is applied gradually, the public adjusts and adapts to its presence and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure both psychological and economic, become too great and they crack up. Therefore, the silent weapon is a type of biological weapon. It attacks the vitality, options, and mobility of the individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking sources of natural and social energy and physical, mental, emotional strengths and weaknesses. And of course, we're in a covert chemical warfare and a covert economic warfare. In silent weapons also, they talk about the laser or the maser, and they were talking about when that would become developed. And here's what they say about that in a document about lasers and masers. In the early 50s, the laser and or maser was developed. And again, this document, Silent Weapons, was put together in 1954. So the maser was already available. So when they talk about it in Silent Weapons, it's important to know that this system was already available. And we're going to talk about the Bilderberg here in a moment because they're starting up now. And next month, Bohemian Grove here in Northern California will be starting their Grove meeting as well. But the Silent Weapons was put together by the U.S. Air Force, Harvard University, the International Bankers, and Rockefeller. Important note right now, it's important to understand how Rockefeller really got his wealth. He reconfigured where oil came from. He had lead scientists involved in creating the illusion that oil was a fossil fuel and made from fossils and plant vegetation. Petroleum has always been a renewable energy resource. And what sadly has become reality is the Russian scientists have always known that petroleum was not dead dinosaurs or plant material, as we in the United States and elsewhere have been taught ad nauseum, and it's written in all of our school books, etc., even in all of our city policies. It's fossil fuels this and fossil fuels that. But the Soviets have always known that it is a renewable resource. They have worked with Saudi Arabia in amassing tremendous economic wealth by drilling and capturing that market that we're being told we cannot use. There's an excellent book. I would recommend everyone download it. Again, this will be in the show notes. It's called Economic of a Hitman, but by John Perkins. But the one I'm thinking of right now is it's called A Hoax, and we'll have that in show notes because the entire name is escaping me at the moment. But very important to look at the show notes and look at the recommended documents that we're talking about. But let's get back to what the laser and maser, and again, they were developed in the 50s. The laser, which we all know about today, it's used in many scanning applications, from reading the surface of DVDs to retrieve encoded information, to measuring distance or even 3D scanning of bodies for computer rendering. The lesser-known maser employs the exact same principle, but it uses radio waves rather than visible light, especially for military applications. It is more potent than the two. A maser can penetrate walls, allowing operators to scan the internals of buildings and record human movement. As an intelligence-gathering tool, a maser is extremely powerful. It can do anything and everything, from scanning documents in a drawer in your house to providing real-time telemetry of a computer's activity that can be used to emulate it or record its output. As a weapon, just like a laser, it can burn, but unlike a laser, a maser can burn a target behind a wall or even underground. So it's important to know just how long these weapons have been available. And when you look at the NASA war document and you read all of the various weapons that have been used and told in that document that are now being used on us, you can understand. Now, the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document, I found it when I read Behold a Pale Horse that was written by William Cooper. It is the very first chapter in his book of Behold a Pale Horse. And again, this is a covert, exposed document, and everyone needs to read it. So we're going back into the genocide program and the ways in which we're seeing genocide unfolding. We're being told now by the high-level session that opened at the World Bank Group by the president, Jim Yong Kim. And this was a recent One Planet Summit in Paris, France. And this is what some of the high points of that meeting were about. He goes on to say that he wants to thank the government of France for continuing to strengthen the spirit that led to the Paris Agreement. Again, climate change and global warming is a hoax, absolute fraud. It is a hoax that's been perpetrated on us. And he's saying that he's glad that everyone has come together in the city and declared that climate change is a common concern of humankind. And we affirmed our collective determination to respond to the urgent threat of climate change. We're here at an extraordinary event to raise our collective ambitions for speed and scale. Every day, climate change becomes a more urgent economic, social threat to all countries and all people. We need investments in the trillions, not billions, to have any hope of keeping the commitments we made 2 years ago. That's what this summit is all about. So again, they need investments in the trillions and not billions. Many have participated, he's talking to the audience, in the Climate Agora, a marketplace showcasing some new financing models and innovation for climate action. Multiple partners are bringing together deals, and they talk about the third deal is with the new City Resilience Program, where we're partnering with the Global Covenant of Mayors to bring together the largest global alliance of cities committed to tackling climate change. The City Resilient Program will design and structure climate-resilient investments and catalyze new sources of capital to finance them. Over the next 3 years, the City Resilient Programs will leverage $4.5 billion in World Bank loans to catalyze billions in public and private capital for technological assistance, project co-financing, and credit enhancement. Especially, the program will act as an investment banker for cities to structure programs like the Resilient Cities programs. And they go on to tell us, and I have a YouTube up. I would recommend all of you that are listening share this far and wide. This is how you participate in getting this knowledge out. We're being taken down by weather systems, weather assaults. Here in Sonoma County, we were hit with directed energy weapons on the night of October 8th and the day ensuing October 9th of 2017, along with the suspected decrease and pulsing of frequencies to the smart meters that were deployed in these areas that were burned out as well. Pacific Gas and Electric, as I have been informing everyone, is run by Rothschild. What each and every one of you can do that are listening, figure out how Rothschild is involved in your city. Type in Resilient Cities in your search bar with your city and find out if you've got Resilient City slated for you. It is the Climate Action Plan extension, so you're going to find climate action plans in your cities most likely, for sure. I've done many YouTubes on the climate action policies. What we're finding now and what these policies are doing is reducing our access to all resources. Here in the new rebuilds in Northern California, natural gas is being recommended to be literally not used in the rebuilds. They want to go everything with electrification. As I've said over the past few years, you can kiss your gas goodbye. That is what is happening. Not only is natural gas, being eliminated and discouraged in new construction, soon we're going to see a hit on gasoline for our cars. Again, this is a massive transition into electric vehicles to further enslave us with limited distance, because we know that distances are greatly reduced by electric vehicles. We also know now, too, that Uber is getting into the bicycle business to further reduce our ability to be mobile. We're being literally incarcerated and soon to be moved off of the rural lands into these electrification grids that we do not survive in.
One particular note on the bicycle business, since I'm very near Venice Beach and Santa Monica, Hulu is a tremendous supplier of bicycles already all around these few cities. And it's becoming very evident that they want people out of their cars and they want them to be riding bicycles.
Absolutely. And in fact, when we've tracked the U.S. transportation statistics on expenditures, we're finding nationwide that the road improvements that we were promised by the CEO of USA Inc. during the election fraud was about creating infrastructure jobs. Well, I can tell you the infrastructure that's being funded is for smart cities. It's for roundabouts. It's for street calming. It's for walkable, bikeable cities. So you'll find in those investments for enhancement of our infrastructure, you'll find 5 miles here, 3 miles there. You'll find smart cities here. Interesting to note, and I'm kind of going to sidetrack because I want to jump into this quickly, but not quickly. It's a horrific situation that's been happening in Tucson right now with the discovery of the trafficking and torturing of children in the sex business. And this is not being discussed on mainstream media. Type in Tucson and child trafficking. You will be stunned at what you will learn. We also found out that Jonathan Rothschild is the mayor of that area. It is a two-term mayor, city, yes. And this is all unfolding as we speak. What occurred basically is that VOP, Veterans on Patrol, in the process of locating homeless veterans, discovered a dim light in a cement company and discovered underground chambers that have been used for hiding children. I won't go into this further. I can tell you it's horrific. It's all part of the pedophilia that has certainly blown up worldwide. There are many movies. Certainly you can find the movie out of England during World War II, where they collected children that were born to unwed mothers. They literally put these children on ships and shipped them to Australia to be sex slaves for the diocese there and to be just physical slaves in Australia. It's a heart-wrenching YouTube about the reuniting of many of these now grown adults with their biological families in Europe, in the UK, in England specifically. I can say that we have been set upon in an unbelievable way. We now must stay together. We must know where we are all at all times to protect one another. We can no longer go out solo. It's not safe. You have to now create your community. You're listening to community right now on this radio show and this program, and you've got to get together with those in your area that are understanding the silent weapons system deployment and what is happening. I would also recommend that all of you listen to The Cooking of Humanity.
Barry Trower.
Yes, Barry Trower talks about the frequencies as weapons. He is recognized as one of the global experts on microwave warfare.
Yes.
And
yes.
I would recommend that everyone watch this. Please share that far and wide. Go to Stop the Crime to our YouTube channel. Subscribe again. Go to our YouTube channel and watch what we're posting on a regular basis. So again, the depopulation percentages are horrific. That is their plan. Doesn't mean that they always fulfill the numbers in their plan, but we can certainly see that they have the weapons system set up in order to achieve those numbers. So let's talk about 5G, because this is becoming a headliner across the country as well as in other countries as well. Let's talk about what's behind that and some of the technology that has now come to light about it. Very important conversation. But I want to throw in, before I continue down this dark road,
we're going to have to pick this up on the other side of the break.
Okay, so we're coming up at the top of the hour, and we will. Thank you. We'll pick it up on the other side.
Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. We're back with Granada Forum Revolution Radio and Deborah Tavares. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Join me weekdays for my new show, Tell Chris Joe. It's going to be a problem show brought to you live from Kensington. Thursdays, I'm dealing with hot topics, heated debate, what's new around the world, and ring-ins to discuss listeners' problems and offering considered and heartfelt solutions. So join me, Chris Hart, for Tell Chris Joe. Stop what you're doing, grab a cup of tea, and coming live from Kensington. Relax. Let me entertain you with a coffee bar online. Listeners' very personal problems. So that's Thursdays, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. See you there. It's going to be lots of fun.
This is Barbara DeLong, host of Nightlight Radio, inviting you to join me on a cosmic journey, exploring a metaphysical montage of spiritual material, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between, including spiritual readings for those who seek enlightenment. Let Nightlight provide you with equal measure of light, love and laughter, insight, wisdom, and inspiration. Monday nights, 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern, right here on Studio B, Revolution Radio, at freedomslips.com.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to the Granada Forum Radio program, ladies and gentlemen, with our very special guest, Deborah Tavares. Deborah, are you there?
Yes, thank you again so much. We were getting ready to dive into 5G and the other aspects of 5G, and it's critical for people to listen very carefully to what you're going to hear me say, because I just recently attended a meeting here in Northern California where Verizon is now working in tandem with Pacific Gas and Electric. This is Rothschild and Rothschild, make no mistake. And I'm going to talk about what is occurring and how we're being tricked and how everyone that's listening needs to watch for this in your neighborhoods. We are literally getting incarcerated in an electronic grid of frequencies that I say to everyone is jamming our immune systems. We do not survive. These frequencies, again, they're weaponized, they're military weapons, and they are limiting our cells within our bodies to communicate. And I would recommend that everyone download from the homepage of stopthecrime.net our symptoms list so that you will understand the kinds of symptoms that we are all facing. I'm going to go over a few of those now. So for those that maybe are unaware of the enormity of the frequencies and are looking at their phones for convenience, which they certainly have become, also understand that the frequencies create a dopamine effect in your brain, which is addictive, very addictive. In fact, in December of 2017, the California Public Health Department made an announcement of information that was withheld for at least 7 years in finally admitting that cell phones cause cancer and other debilitating illnesses. You can just type in California Department of Health, and you will hear that the advisory and what recommendations they're making against cell phone use. That was withheld long enough so that people would become addicted to the frequencies. So what you're hearing right now is the need to immediately reduce the frequencies. These are weapons, and they are killing all of us. So let's read a couple of some of the symptoms, because many are experiencing various types of symptoms. I'm only going to read a few. So again, go to stopthecrime.net and print this list off. Start up a conversation with people, your neighbors, your neighborhood, because as these cells continue to be further densified or enhanced in your neighborhoods, more of these symptoms are going to impact people. We certainly can look at confusion, short-term memory loss, inability to focus, brain fogginess and sluggish thinking, difficulty concentrating, headaches, migraine, vision disruption or eye problems. We can also attribute, and I'm going to add this in, vision disruptions and eye problems are now enhanced by the LED lighting of all of our screens, our computer screens and our handheld devices. We need to get the blue light glasses that will reduce that type of frequency and that type of LED lighting. We have a YouTube up called LED Lighting, a Silent Weapons Assault. Understand that this lighting also increases weight gain. Many people have not understood that, but it increases weight gain. The LED lighting also disrupts your sleep because it reduces the melatonin. But continuing on with the symptom list of the microwave radiation frequencies, and which are electronic drugs, and the Wi-Fi symptoms. We have respiratory problems, slow reaction time, insomnia, dizziness, disorientation, balance problems, agitation, anxiety, depression, suicide. Hello? We were just talking about the ways in which the population is planned to be reduced by the year 2025, and this is suicide as one of those components. Irritability, seizures, vertigo, nausea, vomiting, violent behavior, autism, ADHD, weakened immune systems, high blood pressure, leg cramps, shut down the cell and cell death, changes our genetic makeup, DNA breakage, spinal cord, and our spinal cords act like an antenna for electromagnetic waves, which is an impact on our central nervous system. Did you know that? Now you do. Kidney damage, dehydration, cancer, leukemia, brain tumors, dementia, joint difficulty, heart attacks, infertility, demineralization of our cells and our tissue, worsening existing poor health, autoimmune disease. There are too many for me to read them all. Exhaustion, chronic fatigue, which of course then loss of employment, unusual family conflicts. The list goes on. Our pets are getting jumpy. In fact, most recently I found, and maybe many of you were already aware of this, I had not quite heard of this application. I thought this was interesting, that there is an electromagnetic pet door opener for your pet. It's called PetMate, and it's for a dog and cat, and it allows the door where you have your pet door installed in your regular door to your house, where the RFID chip of your pet will activate the door and allow that door to open. So our pets are chipped. They are all receiving and pulsing frequencies. Certainly, many people have made those decisions to have those RFID chips removed. They are cancer sites, and our pets are getting very ill. This is also an enormous monetary extraction from all of us that love our pets. We will spend thousands of dollars to save our beloved cat or our dog. And you will never hear from your veterinarian that the RFID chip is a cancer site and causing many ailments. So let's continue, because what we have here is so diabolical that there aren't enough words to get out about the enormity of what we face. I'm going to read a couple things as I continue towards the 5G discussion. And this is important because it leads into why 5G is being deployed. 5G is simply a backbone for other frequencies and other apps and devices that are going to create our cities into cyber cities that will be computer-operated cities by Google. So let's talk about some of the things. Here's an article.
Could I say one thing here about 5G, which I think a lot of people may know, but the millimeter wave length that 5G is built on is exactly the same wavelength that active denial systems, which are already built and being used by the military and the police. So when you have a system of antennas in your neighborhood which operate on the same wavelength as an active denial system, you can only think of when would they choose to use this system in your neighborhood as an active denial system. And an active denial system is essentially a wavelength which is aimed at a group of people, and it only interacts with a subcutaneous level of the skin and makes people feel so hot that no one can stay in the spot that they're in. So that's what an active denial system is.
Right. They're using that now for crowd disbursement. They've been using that for some time.
What frequency are they operating that on? What wavelength?
I don't know the exact wavelength, but the millimeter waves which are in this new 5G system that they're proposing are exactly the same wavelength that an active denial system already runs on.
Right, because I've heard they've already started building roads for 5G to operate smart cars.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have sensors in the roads. That is also planned, and They are already deploying applications also pertinent to the San Francisco Bay Area and other high traffic areas that will report on someone if you're in the car and you're using your cell phone or if you're drunk. Some of that is certainly helpful, but it's the frequency.
And the one other thing that as an activist, I always ask people, when you talk about governments, I basically say to them, I don't believe there's anything such thing as a government anymore. It's only corporations and banks. So when you say, would the government do that to me, you're basically asking yourself, would a corporation or a bank do that to me? And when you reduce it to that, it becomes more possible.
Well, that's a good point. And of course, that is much of what we talk about, the fact that we are the enemy. We refer to Senate Report 93549. We have been in a constant state of declared war. Every single year since 1933, each and every sitting president has had the ongoing ritual to continue the emergency, the state of emergency. And all common law is abolished, the Constitution has been abolished, and we have fallen under absolute will of government or public policy. And we're under a system of public policy or war powers. What this means is that the government can take over the transportation, the food supply, the communication, the airways. The government has sole authority over everything at all times.
And the water, all water too.
All water and everything.
All sources of water.
Absolutely, all resources. And that's what we're seeing occurring now is the takeover of water and the restriction.
Right, Deborah, what order, executive order was that? Because I remember that was a big thing that I had read about a long time ago, but I don't remember the exact number of it.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. It's Senate Report 93549.
Okay.
Where everyone that's listening can get this information to understand that we are the enemy. There are many executive orders because our country is run by executive orders. In fact, don't look at your local policies. Type in executive orders. That's where everything is coming from. When we first discovered the required vaccination in California for children, we found that in the executive order enumerated there. And that is the intention for all adults as well, total vaccinations. That's all via executive order. Just as on January 8th of 2018, the current CEO of the United States, Inc., signed an executive order to hastily roll out wireless broadband across rural United States, again, a way in which people would be driven out of the rural lands, all part of the genocide plan to create massive disorientation and move people into these electrification cities called kill cities. Again, the YouTube that we have is Kill Cities by Rothschild and Rockefeller. Get that far out and wide, please. So let's talk about this article. And it's entitled, Why I'm Concerned About Samsung Hypnotizing People and Erasing Their Memory. A Swedish site recently revealed a new program that offers a hypnotist so that you can erase your memories and re-watch your favorite shows for the first time all over again. The program is called...
Oh my God! Jeez,
the program is called Unspoil Me, and it's comprised of 23 minutes of patterns, mesmerizing music, and hypnotherapists directing your thoughts and attention in order to erase your memory. This isn't anything new, despite the fact that we don't hear much about it. The U.S. military has been using hypnotists in the Vietnam War, erasing soldiers' memory and then sending them back out to battle.
Wow.
That's what we have. That's what we have. That's what's been going on. Some of the terms.
So the movie Total Recall was not that far out.
Well, many of the movies are not, and this goes on to tell us again in this article entitled "Why I'm Concerned About Samsung Hypnotizing People and Erasing Their Memories." This was April 23rd of 2018. It says some of the terms and conditions stated on the website that must be consented to before the session begins includes the following. Before starting the experience, I guarantee that I'm over 18 years of age, fully mentally healthy and not suffering from any neurological problems or epilepsy. If not, I guarantee I will contact a doctor before I take part in the experience. If I suffer from abnormally low blood pressure, I will also consult a doctor before taking part in this program. Again, this is diabolical. I'm aware that the experience of self-hypnosis could have real effects, and I'm prepared to forget the whole or parts of my favorite TV series. In other words, you're acknowledging that you're prepared to forget some of your favorite TV shows and series. I am sure my sole purpose for using Unspoil Me is for its intended purpose, and I will therefore only think about a film clip or a TV series which I will have the possibility to forget. So this article goes on what is happening after this experience. They claim that they've forgotten all that they saw, and that they have a fuzzy image, maybe sometimes, of what they saw in the past. But this is used within the MK Ultra program. And this is now part of the future cities that are incarcerating us into them using 5G as the backbone. So let's talk about that a bit right now, because this is literally what MR, or mixed reality, will look like using Unspoil Me and other apps that are also Microsoft patents a mind control for apps, and it's a sensor-equipped headband, and it can leverage neurological data to allow users to open and operate apps with their thoughts. You don't even have to talk. So we're entering a world of which humanity has never been in before. And the 5G network is only the backbone for these future computer-operated cities that are set to destroy everything that is human, everything that is alive, and everything about us that is good and decent. So let's talk about that. Again, acknowledging the fact that 5G is only the backbone for the future technologies. So the cities are being transformed. The technologies that are being used in these cities are going to be in combination of a number of new products and experiences, which will have a multiplying effect on the rate of change that we see in our city environments. It says in the future, all technologies will have two-letter acronyms. And here's what we're told we can expect in a resilient city or a smart city. These are the acronyms, and then I will go over the definitions. 5G, CV, which means computer vision, MR, which is mixed reality, AV for autonomous vehicles, and AI for artificial intelligence. Now let's talk about how this interplays in our cities. But before I get into that detail, I want to just say a few things about the 5G deployment. Thankfully, we were informed by someone that contributes a lot of information about the 5G that Japan is developing to be placed inside manhole-type base stations. And so we have a new method in which 5G wireless will be put in manhole covers in Japan, because Japan has inadequate places. They have a shortage of space, and they can't bury things in the ground as easily or put on roofs. So they've devised a method in which the 5G will work in manhole covers. This is going to be available in April.
Isn't that a way of basically putting 5G in their sewer system? Is that what it basically amounts to?
Well, that is one way to look at it, isn't it?
Okay.
And yes, in manhole covers, whatever that manhole cover may be
covers,
covering.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
they say that it's buried in the ground to overcome a shortage of space in Japan. The waterproof antenna is placed into a deep hole and then covered with reinforced plastic that still allows radio waves to pass through in accordance with the guidelines set by the Communications Ministry in Japan. The intensity and direction, now listen to this, the intensity and direction of the radio waves will be adjusted to prevent them from affecting passerbyers. Now, we're all being told that we need 5G because we want faster downloads. So if it's not going to affect us and go to our cell phones that are generally in our pockets or purses or in women's bras, etc., they're acknowledging the fact that it's to prevent any negative effects to passerbyers. They say that the
and they're also acknowledging that this system can be adjusted. It can be increased, but they're going to be good citizens and keep it low.
Well, we know that it can be amplified. We know that cell towers are turned up generally between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning to interrupt our deep levels of sleep. But continuing on with this 5G Japan disclosure, it talks about the new 5G wireless systems require more base stations than before, but the amount of available space on towers and building roofs is becoming increasingly limited. So that's why Japan came up with this. Now, we have a problem here now in the United States because as Rothschild, a.k.a. all of the telecom industry and your utility companies, they're working on ways in which to circumvent people's increasing understanding of the frequencies and the illnesses and the pushback that many communities are now creating over not having the 4G cells deployed in their communities. So what Verizon has now created is a longer distance capability with their waves. And they say with longer distance and a non-line of sight, meaning it doesn't require beamforming. It will go everywhere. The 5G connection, showing that it will be easier than previously thought to blanket cities with wireless gigabit home connections. So they're looking and are creating new methods to blanket us. Now let me talk about another situation that has come to light here in Sonoma County. All of you listening need to watch out for this in your community. Your utilities are under the auspices of Rothschild. For example, I typed in PG&E, which is the acronym for Pacific Gas and Electric, my search bar, followed by Rothschild, and boom, you see Rothschild. You see a CEO from Rothschild LLC involved in PG&E. Now, for Southern California, which is Southern California Edison, I typed in Rothschild, didn't easily find a link that way, but I typed in Edison International, which is the umbrella over Southern California Edison, and there you go with Rothschild. So I am requesting all of you become activists. Confirm for yourselves how Rothschild has infiltrated your utility companies and how Rothschild is part of the genocide plan to deploy frequencies. Now let me get into what we discovered here. At a meeting as recently as a few days ago here in Northern California, we discovered that the California Public Utility Commission requires that Pacific Gas and Electric allow Verizon to utilize the wooden poles that PG&E uses as transmission lines. Those wooden poles have absolutely no jurisdictional authority under the city here in Santa Rosa, California. Likely that's for you as well. So what we have is the Rothschild camp of the telecommunications working with the CPUC and saying that they must deploy this. Now, what I would encourage all of you to do is to, and I'll have this actually in the show notes, so you won't need to do this. What you're going to see in the show notes is the city of Santa Rosa, just as a demonstration so all of you can see this for yourself. And I'm going to have a document entitled Wireless Small Cells on City Light Poles in the Public Right-of-Way. And it says, the city has lacked the ability to pause installations on the CPUC-controlled PG&E joint poles. City paused approval of installation on the city streetlights. Now, indeed, the city did pause, I'm telling you this now, the deployment of the small cells on their city-controlled streetlights, but only to work out an agreement with the telecom industry on how to best deploy the small cells for visual acceptance so that they were not unattractive. The FCC does not allow refusal. The FCC does not allow refusal of any city on citing health concerns. That's
yes, that was established in 1996, I believe.
And you're right.
I can't remember the name of the act.
Well, I will go on to tell you what everyone needs to hear right now, because this is most important. What we are now noticing here is Verizon pulled their application from one of the cities that was in tremendous opposition to the deployment of the small cells. Verizon pulled their application. So you have to ask, why did they pull their application? The first thought was that the activists thought that they won, that they chased Verizon out of town. Well, not so fast. They're back doors. And the back doors now, we have learned, are working in conjunction with Rothschild on the utility wooden pole grid system that's in place. The CPUC is requiring that Verizon deploy the small cells on the PG&E cells, on the poles,
okay,
I should say, on the wooden poles. Yes.
What about the metal poles that they're starting to install now?
Well, in Northern California, the metal poles are typically light poles, and here the city has jurisdiction over the light poles, and they've got a pause on the further deployment on the light poles. But they cannot pause the deployment on the utility poles. And what we are seeing here, and everyone listening, you need to watch for this in your neighborhoods as well. We're seeing the utility companies, what we're seeing here is Pacific Gas and Electric out in full force with all of their blue trucks operating from their booms, deploying the equipment necessary that the telecom industry needs your utility company to deploy on the poles before they can set the small cells. So what we're observing now are wooden poles lying on the ground that Pacific Gas and Electric is either installing a new additional pole, or they could also be replacing a wooden pole. We have boots on the ground now that we have become aware of this stealth way in which they're circumventing the pushback in the cities. So this is how it's being pushed back. The utilities are working in tandem. Now, I will throw this in right now. Your cities are making massive amounts of revenue off of the deployment of these cells. In fact, the telecom industry is paying the utility company to install what they need on the utility poles. They're getting money for this. This is why that's why we are seeing our utility crews from PG&E out in force now, deploying the equipment necessary on the grid of Rothschild. And as an example, here in Santa Rosa, California, Pacific Gas and Electric is involved in approximately $150 a year per cell. Santa Rosa is going to receive $350 per year per small cell. And they're anticipating 200 small cells. They're looking at their annual revenue of $70,000 and a 15-year revenue of $1 million. So it's important.
And what's the source of this revenue, Deborah? Where is this coming from to the city of Santa Rosa?
Well, of course, the revenue is going to come from the ratepayers. Who else? We're being charged and billed for every single thing. Remember, we're the enemy. We're the economic hitman team. So let me just continue,
are paying Santa Rosa. Okay.
Well, and the utilities use revenues that they collect from ratepayers. Let's be very clear on that.
That I understand. Yep.
Okay, so now what I'm asking everyone to do, if you want to take some action, besides sharing this far and wide, this YouTube far and wide, is to go to your city and make a public records request to check on some different aspects that your city has engaged in. Our cities are all incorporated. Their corporate bylaws and rules only require public speaking. That's why you're given 3 minutes or 2 minutes or however many minutes you're given to continue the illusion that there's a government. There's not. That's why they're extremely dismissive when you go to city meetings. They don't need to listen to you. The policies are in place, and this is on autopilot through the United Nations. Just remember that. Mm-hmm. Everything is on autopilot. Your cities do not work for you. In fact, after the fires here in Northern California, we have seen a host of grants being offered by Rockefeller and by Rothschild. And we're attending meetings because we're hearing the types of organizations, stakeholders, and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, flooding in to Northern California. We're literally being taken. The United States, the people living within the United States, sadly, are so sick now that we're ready for capitulation. We're ready for the culling. That is why the year 2025 is very possible, because we're sick from the food supply, the water, the overhead aerial toxic spraying. Every aspect of the environment is being challenged. But again, the request for public records, go to your city, ask for your climate action plan, ask for your water metering plans. We're finding here that all the meter readers that were in the past reading our water meters are now transitioning the meters to frequency emitting meters. There are 4 collection points in the city of Santa Rosa where all these meter readers are being fed. Imagine the increased frequencies from that also. Also ask for your resilient city agreements, for your signed resilient pledge that the mayors are signing to get the money from Rockefeller. The pledge, the mayor's pledge, we discovered on the 100 Resilient City website. Now, if you watch the YouTube Kill Cities by Rothschild and Rockefeller, you will see an example of the pledge. Every city, the mayor agrees to the pledge. They receive money that goes towards activating all of the climate change requirements to reduce all your abilities to access resources, water, electricity, the use of getting to private lands, accessing parks. It's all being denied to us now. We're moving into the wildlands full-blown project now. So go ahead and ask for these public records requests. I can tell you that we recently asked for a public records request for the small cell installation and deployment, and here's what we asked for: a memorandum of understanding. We wanted the blanket agreement and or the contractual signed agreement and or the grant agreement. Your cities, just to add this, your cities are being run by grants, money that is being printed, that is enslaving us to a debt. We have debt notes. Our money system, of course, is upside down along with everything else. The next part of this public records request is monies the city has already received and expects to receive from all telecom carriers. And we listed Verizon, AT&T, Mobility, and or any others. Go ahead and get these grants. Ask for grants. Look on your city agendas. Go into your city. I can type in Santa Rosa, California, City Council agenda, and click on the agenda for the coming week. I can see in that agenda the grants that they are agreeing to in any given meeting. You're being bypassed. Your voice does not count. Again, this is on automatic pilot. This is a stealth takeover of government through the corporation structure, and it's most important to know we're the enemy. We're now in the crosshairs of a weapons system that most people cannot even recognize as a weapons system. So we're going to go on into further discussion on the 5G and where the 5G is taking the cities of the future. And this is very, very critical to understand. Again, the 5G is just the backbone for the future of all cities. These are peopleless cities. We won't survive with these kinds of frequencies because we're being promised, again, the acronyms in the cities. So the 5G, again, is the backbone. They tell us that it is a marketing term right now, but that the mobile data consumption is exploding and all of our future technologies will require vastly faster and many wireless connectivity points. That demands on the network are doubling every year, and at this rate, with a bit of quick math, they say that we can see in the next decade we will have 1,000 times the demand for mobile data. To meet the skyrocketing demands of the wireless technology, the telecom industry is telling all of us that they need to densify the mobile networks of the years past, and that this means they're moving from macro cell sites that cover neighborhoods to small cells that cover blocks, down to smaller cells that bring high-speed, synchronized connectivity to your home and human-scale settings. They talk about bandwidths have become the lifeblood of cities as much as water and good roads or electricity have supported thriving cities in the past. And it's really the base technology that all other cities will now be built on. And they say look for multiple cells and gigabyte speed wireless in leading cities all over the planet in the coming decade. Going on, computer vision. All the sensors available, video as a sensor will emerge as the most important tool and maybe the most controversial for helping us understand cities over the next decade. Now, I want to add something here. There was some flooding recently, and I can't remember the name of the city. It was in the United States, and it was the second flood that they'd had in a couple of years. It just wiped the downtown area out, and their remedy...
It was in Maryland. I believe it was Ellicott City in Maryland.
You're exactly right. Thank you. So Maryland and Ellicott City, you're right, John. I remember that now. For those of you, you can look at the reports on that flooding event. What they're saying that is necessary to prevent future flooding. Now listen to this. To prevent future flooding is to understand how flooding works. So they're going to deploy cameras so that they can have an advanced warning and understand how flooding works. They're saying this too here in Northern California after the fires. What they told us at a meeting here by the County Board of Supervisors after the fires, there is an organization that is deploying cameras from microwave hilltops, and their plan is to do this all over the country, where it is 24/7, 365 with night vision, live photography, filming, where they can see 150 miles out, and in real time see when fires are starting or the effects of an earthquake, what have you. This is tracking all of us. Make no mistake about this. It's the same thing that Bill Gates is involved in funding now with SpaceX, or with the method of launching multiple satellites overhead that will see it's even less than a square inch of the entire Earth at all times, everywhere. They will see who's illegally fishing. This is the enormity of the incarceration that we are now being placed under. So moving on with the computer vision now in all of our cities, they go on to tell us that the computer vision will quite literally be the eyes of all of our cities. And they tell us that the real power of all of these technologies will be unlocked when they combine them all. And they recognize that the computer vision has well-warranted concerns of privacy, and that they recognize that, but the promise of the benefits of seeing all the time is not as much of a problem as protecting our privacy using computer vision. And they go on, if you can't imagine the city being covered in cameras, just take a look around and count the number of cameras already in all of your cities. Nearly every storefront, street corner, cab, patrol car has a camera. Even our doorbells now have cameras, and they can sequester information from your doorbell footage. The change will occur in swapping out the human who reviews a recording today by a computer that processes the images instead. This is what's happening. Mm-hmm. The innovation will happen when this computer-generated data can be shared safely and securely across the city. That there's no safe and secure across any city. They go on to say that they will also support a real-time 3D map of the planning departments with the plan. Listen to this. It can support a real-time 3D map of the city that could be used for guiding autonomous vehicles around children playing in the street, and supply city planning departments with real-time data on resource utilization, and help business owners understand customer trends and create more responsive services and offerings. Now let's talk about this for just a minute. Well, actually, we're going to talk about autonomous vehicles in just a minute because they run on LiDAR, radar, which is unimaginably a weapons system. They say if 5G provides the base connectivity layer required for all cities to evolve, CV will provide the understanding and ground truth of what's going on in all of our cities. The next acronym in our cities is mixed reality. Now think back of the hypnotizing that I read you about and the program called Unspoil Me. And now let's think about MR in our cities. They go with virtual reality, augmented reality, and plain old reality mixed together to bring digital overlays that incorporate real physics and computer graphics and create immersive experiences with the best of the physical and the digital. We call this mixed reality. Mixed reality is perhaps the most limitless of possibilities of all 5 of the technologies that will be used in all of our cities, and that this will likely serve as the eventual replacement to the mobile phone. So what is happening is we're being disconnected from one another. That's utterly important to understand. That is the goal, to eliminate our connectivity as they connect us with dense frequencies that are weaponized. They go on to say, from virtual goods, reduce strains on our resources, to overlays on the world, entertainment, education, work, MR has astounding implications. With the help of companies like Samsung, Google, and Magic Leap, use cases and interfaces that Google Glass or Pokemon Go have hinted at will transform into seamless natural combinations, physical city infrastructure and society. I could go on, but I'm going to move into AV, another city acronym for autonomous vehicles. It's important to understand that right now in Portland, in Oregon, they already have legislation for autonomous vehicles. What we're going to see is toll roads popping up all over the country, forcing people that wish to travel, those that cannot afford the toll roads, they're going to have to move into the cities. Again, this is all part of the genocide, moving people into these high, dense areas that are electrified cyber grids. But in Portland, they already have the process in place to move in to autonomous vehicles. This is the plan for every city, everywhere, everywhere.
But
make no mistake about it.
Can I bring one thing up? I just want to ask this though, because I know that they're bringing in the vehicles that'll drive by themselves and so on and so on. But a lot of people are getting very dependent upon the GPS systems that they've been installing in their cars instead of looking at a road map. I mean, that's
a good point.
That are bouncing down off of satellites. I mean, that's still got to be a tracking system and a frequency involvement there as well.
Of course it is, and we are all being tracked. There are trackers in all of our cars. In fact, oftentimes when older cars are being recalled for something, they're actually putting tracking devices in the recall cars. If you didn't know that, you can look at the NASA War document on Stop the Crime. It talks about how that's done as well. But getting back into autonomous vehicles, these are driverless cars. Again, no people involved here. And they talk about autonomous vehicles. And it's important to understand that autonomous vehicles use LiDAR and lasers, and they pulse out a million times a second out about 100 feet, a 360-degree circumference around the vehicle, and then it comes back to the supercomputer on board. Now think of an AV, an autonomous vehicle, as a computer on wheels. That's what it is.
Yes.
So here's what they say about AV. We have more than 1 billion cars on the planet. That's trillions of dollars of readily depreciating infrastructure sitting on the streets, used for only a fraction of its life. And even when cars are used, their most efficient use is limited. And they go on, these real-time software technologies will drive the greatest rate of change in cities in the coming future. We've given our cars billions of square feet of prime real estate in cities around the world. Autonomous vehicles not only have the potential to change the idea of car ownership and last mile traveled, but also radically change the way we manage logistics and delivery of goods. We will see cities' use of space and people's travel habits change dramatically over the next few years, enabled by changes to vehicle sizes and the addition of intelligent routing, breaking down car travel into everything from package delivering drones, think Amazon Prime Air or Starship, to microbuses making commutes efficient and cheap, to intelligent, tiny, easy-to-use, single-person rideables. This is AV. Now we're going to talk about AI, how artificial intelligence is going to be used in the cities. They say that they need brains to bring the technologies together in all of our cities and make all of these technologies work. And they say they're not talking about order-taking robots or computers. They need a program and they need to program every detail. And they go on to tell us that with learning systems that can scale massively in scope via cloud computing and maintain responsiveness across billions of interactions on the most minute level via in-device edge processing, AI is the most unpredictable and essential technology of the bunch. It has the potential to bring things together to help us solve critical macro issues. We can use AI to make vastly better use of our resources, solve equity issues, and prevent crime. Now, I want to just add something real quick to equity issues. We're seeing that used in all the resilient cities, how we're being there's no equity. In other words, there's too much disparity between the haves and have-nots. The plan, of course, is to solve that problem and equalize everything. However, what we find interesting here, and you may find this in your cities, we have a massive increasing homeless community. After the fires, we have thousands of homeless people. We see in Africa, we see in South America, Central America, we see certainly weaponized refugees from weather events, from economic events. We see massive increases of homelessness. This is all planned. It's all part of the suicide and the genocide plans. Massive disruption. So let's continue on now with AI. Sure, they go on to tell us that there are lots of other breakthroughs. Physical technologies are out there, from 3D printing to micro-housing, but it's 1 billion times harder to move an atom than an electron. So we think these real-time software technologies will drive the greatest rate of change in cities. Think of them as the 5 basic ingredients, which we can build an infinite range of recipes. The real power of these technologies will be unlocked when they are all combined. 5G connected AVs, autonomous vehicles, utilizing data sourced from the city via CVs, which are computer vision cameras, and sensors, to anticipate obstacles in real time, every time, everywhere. Using AI to process the data and coordinate with other AVs, autonomous vehicles, for a maximal street level effectiveness, all with passengers looking out a virtual MR window, mixed reality window, onto their individualized city, a 2-letter acronym. These are all in the future. Keep your eyes open. You're going to see these technologies popping up in all future development across all cities now. And we're seeing Google now creating a city like this in Canada. We're going to see Google now being and creating the network in our cities. That is what is going to be rolled out in our cities. So 5G is the backbone of future technologies, which is going to sound great. Now, let's talk about some other things too. I'm just going to cover a number of things. First of all, I received some info from an insider about Bohemian Grove, which is the annual meetup here in Northern California at Bohemian Grove, which hosts those that perpetrate children. Certainly, many are involved in that, not all, but many are. And certainly they plan for events throughout the United States. But for the first time ever, I'm being told that the annual secret gathering in Bohemian Grove, which is going to take place actually next month here in Northern California, they're going to include women. And no, not just as members. The members will not be women. But apparently some of the members have been complaining about only same-sex fetishes and hookups have been accommodated in the past. In other words, they bring in prostitutes. I've seen them scurry around the perimeter of Bohemian Grove. They're lodged in many of the hotels in Rio Neto, which is the little city right outside of Bohemian Grove. But so now they're saying the women will be brought in, and that the word is already out there that they're not local workers, that they are all trafficked women from Eastern Europe who had absolutely no problems getting any visas. They also had their transportation via private jet. And it's interesting, they say, to get their male escorts, they're still local. So men that are involved with wanting a male, the males are still local. Now, also, the secretive Bilderberg elite meeting is going on now, and some of the topics that are being publicized that they will cover. And again, we call Bohemian Grove Bilderberg West. You can type in Bohemian Grove coverage that we have covered in the past. We have literally hung massive banners all around the entrance of Bohemian Grove. In fact, it was on the way to Bohemian Grove to protest that my husband and I were hit broadside on Tulane Road, and his massive 3/4-ton pickup truck was totaled. So, but adding to that, now the Secretive Bilderberg elite meeting is taking place, and they talk about some of the key topics for discussion at this year's meeting, which was published by its organizers. And these are some of the topics. They list 12 topics. Populism in Europe, the inequity challenge, because they want everybody to be the same, so they're wiping out economies. I'm adding this. The future of work, we're all being displaced because there is no work. Artificial intelligence, the U.S. Before the midterms, free trade, U.S. world leadership, Russia, quantum computing, Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the post-truth world and current events. And they go some of the issues like the rise of anti-establishment politics and populism in Europe, and the persistent inequality are going to be...
John?
Yes.
We only got a few minutes left on the show, and I really want to get this in before we go, because your research, both of you have constantly brought up the topic of frequencies. How much of this stuff that happened do you think happened because of some of Tesla's research that wound up disappearing?
Oh, absolutely. All involved in stolen research, of course, and many other stolen technologies as well. But this has been a plan. We're the enemy. Go to stopthecrime.net. And John, I want to thank you so much for joining us on
my pleasure.
Granada Radio tonight.
John,
and thank you, Wendy.
At some point.
You're welcome, Deborah. Thank you, John. And thank you, Nick. Thank you for being
Thanks,
with us on
Wendy.
Granada Forum Radio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Will you fight? No! We will run! And we will live!
Shame on you! This could be the greatest night of our lives. But you're gonna let it be the worst.
And I guarantee a week won't go by in your life you won't regret walking out, letting them get the best of you.
Well, I'm not going home.
We've got too far!
And I'm gonna stay right here and fight for this lost cause.
A day may come when the courage of men fails, but it is not this day.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
I'm not saying it's gonna be easy.
You're gonna work harder than you ever worked before.
But that's fine, we'll just get tougher with it.
If a person grits his teeth and shows real determination,
failure is not an option.
That's how winning is done. Believe me when I say
we can break this army here
and win just one for the Gipper.
But I say to you, what every warrior has known since the beginning of time, you've got to get mad.
I mean plumb mad dog mean.
If you would be free men, then you must fight to fulfill that promise. Let us cut out their living guts
1 inch at a time.
and they will know what we can do.
Let no man forget how menacing we are. We are lions.
You're like a big bear, man.
This is your time.
Seize the day.
Never surrender. Victory or death.
That's the Chicago.
Who's with me?
Clap! Clap! Don't let him die! Clap!
All right,
let's fly.
And gentlemen in England,